Hi class, welcome to week two's short lecture. I hope you enjoyed week one. I'm looking forward to reading your reflections on your positive and negative experiences with writing. Um, as I said, it's interesting for me to read just to kind of see where you guys are coming from and to see what your experiences are. But I also think it's useful for you to reflect on your writing experiences. So I hope you found that useful. The word you see in the background, rhetoric, is generally the topic that's going to be covered in week two in various ways. I have the distinct pleasure of having my PhD program be in rhetoric, and it's a distinct pleasure because when you tell people that your PhD is in rhetoric, you get a variety of different reactions from people who understand its status as a distinct field in terms of tracing back to the ancient Greeks and the Romans and even pre-Socratics before that and into political rhetoric today, to people who um, might interpret it to be closer to a four-letter word in the sense of it having extremely negative connotations in many realms, in mass communication realms, in general conversation realms, in political realms. You'll often see headlines to say, insert politician's name here, his or her rhetoric, his or her, it's implying that there is an intentional manipulation at work, right? So rhetoric is typically used in a very negative way to describe it or describe a negative communication process. So suffice it to say, this isn't a rhetoric course, so we're not going to go in depth about its long-standing history as just the art of persuasion. Let's say, as you know, persuasion can be for both good and bad ends. So we're going to use rhetoric in this class to help conduct analysis of a written document. So before you get started on your own writing of the written document, which, as I said last week, will be the subject of the class, I'm going to have you analyze one specific written document this week through a specific lens, and that is this one here. So as you can see from this image, this is a rhetorical situation. You may have seen this in some various permutations or variations throughout your educational experience. You see here, there's a triangle. It's convenient, right? Neat little geometric shapes help describe complicated processes. So the entire situation includes the subject at the top, the writer, and the reader, and the text is that which connects all three and is the substance that we're analyzing. So when you look at a specific document, for example, or a specific speech, right, what this triangle is telling you to do is to pay attention to the subject about which the text or speech is about, the writer who is writing it, and the reader or listener or audience who is subjected to the text or the speech, whether intentional or not. And then at the bottom of the circle, we have the context that plays into all three of those things. So the reason why I share this image is just to go into some level of depth or to kind of provide some background to essentially share with you the importance of audience in this, right? And I think we all kind of understand that when you're writing, the decisions you're making when you're writing, such as what words to use, how long paragraphs should be, the title of the piece, how formal you should be, how informal you should be, all these decisions that you make as a writer ultimately come back to who your audience is and who's going to read it, right? So astute readers have a certain level of writing skill in terms of ability to craft sentences and select the appropriate words. But all those decisions relate back to whoever your audience is, because there is no such thing as the ideal sentence, or there's no such thing as the right word to use outside of the context of who your audience is. There are effective words to use for certain audiences and ineffective words to use for other audiences. So in this really brief 1 week, right, we're not going to cover the entire field, obviously. I just want you to think about who the audience is in your specific text, and in this case specifically, conduct an analysis where you're paying attention to the decisions made by the author or the writer, or in this case probably a collection of writers, given the case that's at hand, and think about the decisions they made and whether or not you think it's appropriate for the audience, the subject, the context at hand, right? So that's what I want to introduce to you. So there's two assignments that you'll be completing this week. One is a read and respond. I'm going to have you read a piece from the Harvard Business Review um, that is representative of the type of pieces that maybe you have seen circulated on social media or that you'll see pop up pretty consistently in a variety of publications, specifically business publications. And they try to answer the ultimate question: how to improve your business writing, right? You guys are all here taking MBA 621 for a variety of reasons. And I know that. They're not necessarily under always the conditions under which you want to take a course. Many of you it is. Suffice it to say, you're here, you want to improve your business writing, right? And a lot of people don't necessarily have the distinct pleasure of being in an MBA program. So you see a lot of these documents talk about how to improve your business writing, and they all kind of, there's no really cohesion around them. You'll see them pop up in Forbes or in Harvard Business Review or a variety of Business Insider or a variety of other business publications. And generally, it's a truncated, kind of shortened version of what they think it means to improve your writing. And of course, there are as many different opinions and variations on it as there are people in this world or CEOs in this world. So you'll get some that the CEO of iFixit, which is a company that kind of does DIY instructional documentation for a variety of different technologies, once wrote this infamous piece. It says, "I won't hire people who use poor grammar," right? And it kind of got exactly what the publication wanted, which was clicks to get people to read it. And his justification being that if you can't pay attention to simple grammatical details, then I don't trust you with all the details of whatever else you're going to be doing, right? How can you how can you be responsible for the details of doing payroll or of doing inventory or any sort of task if you're not paying attention to the details of a text? Anyways, that's one specific example. This O'Hara piece isn't as dogmatic as that. It's just a more thoughtful overview of the different strategies that certain people have found to be effective in terms of improving it. And what I like about the piece is not, I think it's the best, I don't think it's the best written piece, and I don't think it's the most, the ultimate piece that you need to read, and then this is going to be on your way. Because 6 months later, there'll be another piece circulating around, and we'll have the same conversation again. The reason I shared it is because the piece assumes that to improve your writing, ultimately it's on you, right? Just to kind of offer a very short, truncated vision of what her argument is. So what she's talking about and exploring through a variety of different interviews and a variety of different ideas is that to improve your writing, you're going to have to think about the strategies that you have, the outlets that you're currently reading, the groups that you're a part of, and all these other strategies that are involved in becoming a more effective business writer. So it's a more holistic approach to writing that combines including education and training with your own personal responsibility and what is possible for you, because your needs are so specific, I think, at this point in many of your careers. So that's why I shared it. And then there's a variety of questions using a Google Doc form that I'm going to have you fill out. But the more major assignment is the second one. And in that, I'm going to have you watch a short video, I believe it's 2.5 minutes, by Brian Garner. He's the editor-in-chief at the Harvard Business Review. I don't work for the Harvard Business Review, in case you're wondering. It just so happens that the pieces that you're reading and watching happen to be from there. And he offers 5 tips to improve your business writing, right? So he takes a very distinct approach in what he's trying to communicate. Is he's kind of doing a more quick, not an elevator pitch necessarily, but a really quick kind of to-go presentation about what are the 5 things. It's almost like someone was asked him, like, "Oh, you're the editor-in-chief of Harvard Business Review. What are the 5 things I need to know to improve my business writing?" And he provides 5 things, right? Avoid jargon, personal pronouns, contractions, whatever it is. And a lot of them might be in line with what you've learned about writing, and some of them might kind of go against what you've learned in writing, such as contractions, right? Can I use can't, don't, whatever it is, right? And he has a very specific opinion on it. Now, it is 2.5 minutes, so take it with a grain of salt. You can't really explain anything that is a lifelong learning process in 2.5 minutes. But what I want you to do is I want you to take notes on the 5 points, specifically the reasons he gives for the 5 points, why you should or should not use contractions, for example. And take notes on them, because I'm going to expect you to take the principles, or the ideas, I guess, better way of saying it, and apply it to the next part of that, which is a letter that was written to a public audience after a very negative experience that the customer had. And then following that, there's a worksheet that's going to ask you to ask questions that applies Gardner's video to the specific letter, And then there's a few other questions in there to get you thinking about the image I shared at the beginning of this video, which is about your audience and about what the purpose and what the subject is and what's the larger context of it. And evaluating business writing not for how it follows this ideal model of what business writing is. Because I mean, if we were in class and we can kind of all talk about our own various experiences, that'd be very interesting to know. Two businesses down the road or two industries the next city's over will have very different ideas about what effective business writing is. So my job here, it would be pretty unproductive for me to kind of focus on here's what effective business writing is, because for the 20 of you or so in the class, it might work for 3 of you and then it won't work for 17. So instead of doing that, what I want to do is introduce a framework for you to think about, and this is why I think rhetoric is important, is to introduce a framework for you to be able to evaluate what effective business writing means in a very specific context, in a very specific situation. Because what you'll see defined as excellent writing or effective writing or good writing will be defined not only by industry, but by specific companies, and even by specific genres or situations within a specific business. And I think a lot of you already know that very well, or kind of have an inkling that that's true in this activity before you start writing your own writing in week 3, which is next week. Gets you to kind of get in the habit of thinking that way and always have your radar up, looking at these specific aspects of writing and making assessments and judgments about the effectiveness of business writing based on that criteria. So, sorry, a bit longer video than I wanted, but I think it's pretty important because it kind of outlines the theoretical framework for what we're going to be doing for the rest of the class. So, of course, as it was in week 1, if you have any questions, let me know. And if not, have a good week and enjoy completing the assignments.